the current way of doing it, which is to make decisions about whether there is an imminent hazard and whether immediate response actions are necessary to address those imminent hazards. Those decisions are often based following 2-hour notification on a short-term basis and with limited information. These are decisions that happen early on in a site investigation, before you know what's happening at a site, before you have a really good grasp of what the exposures are, what the range of contaminants are, before you've done your phase 2, essentially. So first, differentiate the kinds of decisions you're making early on in the process with limited information and time deadlines, versus later on in the process, following a comprehensive site assessment. You've gone through your phase 2. In theory, you have a very good understanding of what's there, how it got there, where it's going, what exposures are happening, and what the risks are. So qualitatively, you're in a different situation. The way it's currently written, there's a bias in comparison. And the bias in comparison is non-health protective. It's a bias against being conservative. It's a bias against being protective of public health, which in fact is inconsistent with the charge to the department and to LSPs to, when in doubt, make decisions erring on the side of protecting public health. So there are consistencies, there are inconsistencies, and it works in different ways. The bias here involves the rounding and the precision associated with these chemicals, with these calculations, not the chemicals. In that there's uncertainty with all of these measurements. There's uncertainty in the risk values. There's the precision associated with many of these measures, whether it's the amount of water that you drink, or the toxicity of a particular chemical, or your exposure frequency, is generally to one significant figure. If you use traditional rounding methods, which, if it's 2.45 and you round down to one significant figure, it's 2. If it's 1.89 and you round to one significant figure, it's 2. If you use those traditional rounding methodologies, you think you're being unbiased, you think you're being even-handed. But the way that the comparison is set up, where currently the comparison is that you have to be above the risk limit in order to trigger action. So right now, as the way it's currently written, if you're doing an imminent hazard evaluation, where something has to happen immediately if you trigger this risk limit, and you calculate that you have a hazard index of 1.45, and the risk limit is 1 for the imminent hazard evaluation under consideration. Are you above or are you below that risk limit? Is action triggered or not? Well, if you do the traditional rounding, you round down. 1.45 is the same as 1. Is 1 greater than 1? No. So you would round down and calculate 1.45, but given one significant digit of precision, that is roughly the equivalent of 1. 1 is not greater than 1. So the decision there is not to take action. Now you've made that decision in a short time frame with limited information, where you've calculated a number that's actually greater than 1, but due to precision uncertainties, you round it down to 1. So there, you've rounded down and you've changed the decision from 1.45 to 1. Well, but rounding is even-handed, right? There's no bias in rounding, except you go to the other end. If you have a value, you calculate a value of 0.85, and you round it to one significant figure, or actually 0.91, let's say. You round it to one significant figure. You're going to round that up to 1. Okay, 1 is still not greater than 1. So you're rounding, on the face of it, the uncertainty in theory works both ways, but because of the way the decision criteria are set up, which is a purely policy decision, it's not a science decision, the way the decision criteria is set up, it can only result in a bias towards no action. And that, the department has decided, is inconsistent with the statutory and regulatory charge that we have to be protective of public health. Where if we have a bias, and if we introduce bias through policy, that bias should be towards protecting public health and taking action when there is doubt, taking action when there's uncertainty, rather than the opposite of that. Now, on the deep end of the site assessment process, where we know more about a site, we have a lot more confidence, we've done a lot more site assessment, we have the time to evaluate the site, and we can put it in a larger context, then we're not proposing any changes there because we feel that we have a better grasp on that, and that the relative uncertainty associated with that rounding is minor compared to the knowledge that we now have about the risk posed by the site. So we're not proposing to change it on the back end, but it's because of the bias that the policy introduced that we're changing it on the front end where time-critical actions are required.
Thank you.
I haven't even been practicing.